City Commission Workshop Meeting of the City of St. Pete Beach. It is Monday, September 11th, 2023, 4:30 p.m. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, if you'll please do the roll call.
Vice Mayor Grill.
Here.
Commissioner Frislowski.
Here.
Commissioner Marone.
Here.
Commissioner Grouse.
Here.
Mayor Petrilla.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Yeah. Right. Good afternoon, Commission members and Mayor. We got a couple of budget items that we wanted to just delve a little bit more into detail before we get to the actual budget hearing tonight. So with that, we have a PowerPoint presentation ready for us to go through it. We'll try to keep a good pace because it's good amount of material to cover. So we're going to start with Candace. And this has to do with the information technology investment plan that we have presented to you. I think we have tried to clarify how much of the investment is replacement of existing infrastructure versus how much is actually new things, because I think that we didn't do a good enough job in separating those things before. So with that, Candice.
Thank you. All right, so there's just a couple slides. I tried to summarize. I know one of the takeaways that I had specifically, hardware purchases, there was some concern and question around reoccurring versus net new, so that's something that Alex just raised. And then, there was some question about reoccurring costs once we do acquire new hardware, so I want to talk a little bit about that as well. And then we'll go over the net new expenditures, and then the proposed staffing mix. I wanted to kind of re-raise that role that we had talked a little bit about. I think that's actually first, so we'll just start in the order that you have the slides to make it easy for everyone.
We didn't get any slides in advance, so however you do it will be.
Yeah,
sounds good. Okay. Well, I'm going to start with this deck and the slide that's here. It does start with the staffing slot. So if you recall, when we regrouped last time, the IT department is 2 people. I kind of laid out the typical IT structure that you would have in an organization. Clearly, we're not large, so I have a lot of experience in small and larger organizations, and so spreading yourself around, trying to make sure that you have the right coverage for the staffing needs, for the support needs. I did ask for 1 additional body in conjunction with myself and the specialist. By the way, the specialist that I'm talking about is Ryan. I'm sure most of you know Ryan. He's everywhere all the time pretty much, but he also runs every single meeting that you all are in and others that you aren't in. His entire day today, in fact, was full of meetings. So, a good portion of his time is taken up. So this body that I asked for, we did talk about it being a BA analyst to help us with support of applications, but also implementing new projects for the city. And I have a list of new projects just to talk about briefly in a second, but I want to re-emphasize the support role that person will have. So when they're not helping facilitate implementing a new piece of hardware or running a project for a hardware or software installation for the city, they're going to be handling support tickets and support cases. So we put in a new finance enterprise software this spring. Most people probably know Central Square ERP came in. A good portion of my time is spent working in that application, learning the workflows, understanding the functionality, and helping support it. So this person will be helping in that capacity a great deal, mainly for that, but also for many other applications that we have already, Asset Essentials, bringing in the HR modules that are coming, right? So that's going to require implementation and then ongoing maintenance and support. So we're adopting more technology, right? We're bringing in more software that we have to continue to support and maintain. So not just will they be helping us implement new, but they will be a support body to help facilitate support in a timely fashion and cover application and hardware and the security side in conjunction with myself and Ryan. So I did want to bring that point of clarification specifically. The list here you can kind of see, I already talked about the finance, payroll, HR. The procurement piece is coming as well, or is in the middle of being finalized, I think, from an implementation standpoint. But There's quite a bit of support that come with these, particularly the large-scale ERP. Building and permitting's coming next year, right? Hopefully, things will go smooth and we'll get that implemented, but there's going to be clearly a support, maintenance and support obligation on us from that application as well. So, these things don't get put in and then just kind of sit, right? They have to be maintained and kept up. We're the first line of defense. We do take the tickets. If we can't resolve it, we do escalate to the organizations for support. But at the end of the day, we do a lot of that support on the day-to-day basis. I don't want to, I'm going to assume you guys are going to stop me as we go. I don't want to clear my pieces because let's get into the costs. So I think the very next one will be.
Well, I'm curious though, if we go back, I mean, can we go back?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
So have we agreed on all of the new applications that we are going to go and implement them and invest in them? And then, I mean, I'll ask all the questions. The C-Click Fix, I didn't think we needed to support C-Click Fix. It's not our system. I mean, if this is a common.
We do support and maintain it.
Well, isn't it a common system used, or these are all individual installations?
They are all individual installations. So C-Click Fix is a separate application and instance in and of itself. And we do.
Are we using it as a city? Because I tell you, I've got one that's out there for a year and still hasn't been worked.
Yes, we use it heavily. It's used by Public Works. It's used by Parks and Recs and Beach.
So can we get separately, because I know this is a budget discussion, can we at some point soon get a list of everything that's open in C-Click Fix and some statistics and what's been open and what's been closed? I've got ones out there for a year.
And that's exactly what she's basically talking about. One thing is having an application, another thing is getting the best and highest use of the application. So we have somebody who can write reports and do these things. Right now, what we're working on is an integration between C-Click Fix and Asset Essentials. Asset Essential is a work order management system. So when a request comes in, it goes directly into somebody's work order and gets assigned to somebody. So that integration hasn't existed. We got to work with the two different providers, make it work, but we got to make it work for us, right? While the applications are commonly purchased and is existent in the market, you got to make sure that the integration works and the reports that you need for having the right information coming out as you're asking for, it's something that this person will help with.
Look, I don't want to make this,
Yeah.
I know we have a lot to cover, but before we go and make that investment, I mean, I don't know why we would build a bridge between two different systems. If it's not the right solution, get rid of it and find a solution that works. This is used in multiple cities around the.
Yeah, I don't think the solution is a problem.
Yeah, the solution is definitely not the problem. So C-Click Fix, you go in and as a resident, even as a.
No, right, I got it, but we're building a bridge between two disparate systems from two different vendors, and you just said we're going to build a bridge so that we can get information. We're customizing software. Anytime we customize, it's expensive.
It's customized. Let me just clear the table for you. It is already customized. Public Works has a completely custom install and configuration for Asset Essentials, and C-Click Fix is also very customized for our city needs. What we're doing is actually to improve the service between the two systems such that when you enter one in C-Click Fix, it automatically creates.
I understood. I got it. I'm trying to get to end game here. We're building a bridge to get two systems to talk to each other. Okay, we need to analyze that, what it's going to cost and why we're doing it, because then maybe we don't have the right solutions.
I think that's still missing the point. So those two systems are already.
I understand.
In the middle of
I fully understand.
And actually, we're almost done with that integration. I just want to be clear, that was a very inexpensive integration that we are almost completed with. What this is maintaining and supporting the systems going forward is what I'm after to help support that.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting I'm customizing anything new or different. I'm actually just creating the bridge so that those two systems talk. I'm curious why that particular system of C-Click Fix is of significant interest on this sheet.
Oh.
It's a very small system here.
No, I think the concern is that we're not getting the right reports out of C-Click Fix, right? And absolutely, you're right. If we have the right people to run the right reports, then we can get performance reporting out of these systems, which is really what, at the end of the day, we're trying to do.
Right. And look, we're going to run out of time, so I'll be quiet. But let's go.
All right, I'm going to skip over this one, so I want to get right to the major meat of the cost. So there was a lot of concern over replacement costs versus net new costs for IT, so I did my best here to try to break this up into buckets so that you could see, by and large, when you were looking at the operating budget, and I think there was some discussion of, you know, 500K spend or over 500K spend this coming year. And so what I tried to do is break this up into so you could see the replacement versus net new. And the only thing net new here on this slide from an operating cost standpoint are two items: $7,000 net new hardware recommendation for some cameras, body cameras for some test and piloting things we wanted to do in community development and code this year, and then the contract labor for the managed services security and network group that we were looking to try to augment our team for helping manage the security platforms. The rest of that is year-over-year replacement cost, by and large.
So the software, we said it's centralization of IT spend, so we should see offsets then in other departments.
Good question. So we did reconcile and bring over any offsets that were there. There weren't that many, to be honest with you. I think Vince and team probably had already done a fair amount of consolidating of that budget prior, at least last year, at least 1 year back. But there were a couple. I'm going to say it's probably under even 20K of duplication that we were able to kind of go back and make sure that there were no duplicates. So that is correct.
So 92% is just license renewals.
Software, portfolio, license renewals, yes. And I do have the line item detail, like by line item,
Yeah,
but
okay.
not for today, I'm sure. Yep.
And the hardware is just replacing equipment,
End-of-life equipment.
standard end-of-life equipment?
That's right, that's right. Everything, so just so we're clear, everything in that hardware bucket is end-of-life equipment. It's things that are 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 years old. I did bring some pictures if anyone's interested. Somebody said they wanted some tangible information last time. It's tangible that you have a seawall and you can touch and feel and walk out and see it, but IT's hard to do, so if anyone is interested, I can show you the equipment closet so you can kind of see the type of stuff that we're dealing with in there, but it's end of life. A lot of these things are on their last leg. I failed to mention when we talked phones and email last time that we did lose the phones earlier this spring for a couple days. They went down the other day as well. So that phone system is, it's one thread away from not being able to be rebuilt and serviced. And we certainly don't have, when I ask for support from the vendor, it's called best effort because we don't have a support agreement on that anymore. There's no maintenance contracts or any sort of support with it. So they'll get to it when they get to it, and they may or may not be able to fix it is what happens when things go end of life.
With those things, are we moving to, are we moving away from hardware? So, for example,
In these cases, we won't be able to because it's a hardware, it's a physical firewall stack and switches stack. Servers, yes, 100%.
like phone systems, for example?
What's that?
The phone systems, for
Yes,
example, so
we'll
we're
move
moving away from hardware.
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be a cloud-based solution, 100%.
And what is the 240K, the orange box?
All right, so the 240 covers the proposed for the managed services contract. So just to kind of refresh, we had talked about the fact that we won the grant for about 70K worth of software from the state. So this program will not only come in and run and manage, set up and configure that with us, but they will maintain and support it, all of the technology for the threats, the monitoring. So somebody had mentioned, well, what did we do before you got here, and what are we doing now, and what are you trying to do going forward? And when I got here, there was not a lot going on from a monitoring and security standpoint, just to be perfectly frank. There was one guy, and he certainly didn't have time to be looking at dashboards and tools. When I got here, I started looking at, well, what tools do we have? What kind of reporting and capability do we have? What can we look at? And frankly, it's real slim. And some of those things are also into life where support and maintenance is out of contract. So that's why I went after so much capability from the state, is if I figured if we got that, right, at least this year, we would be filling a lot of gaps and covering for a lot of gaps that we currently have in the security stack for the city. Frankly, what what's going to happen if we don't invest in having some resources, support, and maintain it? We don't monitor for threats actively within systems out there in the marketplace. We're going to have another incident like we've already had, and our cyber insurance now is high. It will likely be not renewed if we don't maintain some level of security and compliance. The other thing is, some of you probably already know that the state is starting to mandate more security and compliance programs down into the local municipalities. Last July, they rolled that out. Yes, they're relying on us to pick the framework and controls, but it's a reliant mandate that we have a program in place. And so that's what I'm trying to start this year. I've started some of that. The technology's helping. This infrastructure, if you guys approve it, is going to help a great deal. And then having some contract support to help maintain and keep these things fresh, current, all the threats managed, reporting, right? If there's a patch that needs to be done, these people are going to be on it. They're going to be reporting back to me that all of these things are done, not waiting for reactive approaches, right? So it's going to be a proactive oversight, management, and service.
And the cybersecurity insurance today is $50,000 a year, just to give you a perspective. But that can go many times higher if we don't have the right systems in place.
Yeah.
Now,
I would take that a step further and say we will not get renewed.
Right, they won't
it
renew.
could even be that.
I will tell you that.
Now, on the good side, I think you're going to start seeing money coming in from the state to help pay for this, because they recognize that every municipality, every county is at risk, and especially the small ones who really have a difficult time in making the right investment to be ready. So I think there might be some money in the future for.
So the 70K, excuse me, the 70K is, that we're getting is to set up the framework, and the 240 is to run the framework?
The 70K is the actual technology platform, so all of the services. So that's actually the technology itself. The 240 will help maintain, so it'll help configure, monitor, maintain, and support all of that in conjunction with all of this hardware that, if it gets approved, they will also be maintaining and supporting all of that as well. So it's a full contract augmentation for network and security on the whole for the city.
Are there multiple levels between 0 and 240?
Definitely.
Okay.
And
So
I'm
just-
still negotiating through
Right.
what those layers would look like and
Right.
what we would actually, have to have the priorities in that cost structure.
Yeah. So if you want to allocate less, I'm just giving you
Yeah.
that, we can try to work with whatever you give us, because every dollar is better than what we were before.
That's true.
Okay, thank you.
Most of these numbers are kind of matching up with the budget sheet, except the one I'm looking at is hardware. We got a number of hardware, 52,000 here. It's 102 there. Is there a?
Actually, what you're seeing is the 109 or 102. I see what you're talking about. Yeah, there's two hardware line items. I'm not sure what sheet you're looking at from the budget, but there's one for 52 and some change, and one
Yeah.
for 57.5 under equipment. So if you go down a few more line items, you'll see.
Oh, I see. It's listed as just equipment. So
Yeah,
that's the equipment number plus the hardware number
That's right.
equals that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about
Okay.
that.
No, it's okay. I'm just trying to.
But yeah, that's how it rolls up in the budget. I'm going to keep moving, and like I said, you guys stop me. I'm holding up everyone's time somewhat here. So
So the camera, though, we talked about,
Oh, yeah.
I don't understand why we're investing in cameras, which I assume is a security system, when we don't have the internal infrastructure to actually monitor it. We'll have cameras to take videos, but what are we going to do with it? And how do we monitor it and get real-time information to make it useful?
It is, yeah, that's a different level, because once you have to pay a monitoring company, there's a cost for that. What at least this will give us is the ability to go back, and if something gets stolen, we can go back and look at the video and find out, if we can find out who stole it.
let me clarify, it won't just be going back, right? Because the systems that we're looking at, most of the ones that are available are going to have, it's going to be real-time proactive AI-based systems, right? So you will get these alerts. We can and likely will be setting up alerting and configuring so that these monitors and these alerts are going to come out real time. Now, to your point, what are we going to do about that, right? What's the structure? What does that look like? We certainly still have to nail all that down, but I just want to be clear. We're not suggesting we're going to staff a security operating center, but we are going to have some capabilities, a lot of intelligence baked into the platform to allow us to have a lot of monitoring and alerting. So I just was trying to
Sensors
clarify
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's a year 2 and a year 3 plan that takes us there,
Yes, there will be.
but we don't have that today. How much is this
I have a
investment?
quote. I have 2 quotes right now. The primary quote is for 202. I think if, let me go back here on the
How much is this investment for year 1?
202 right now. That's the quote I have, $202,000 right now. This is the slide for CIP. So it's the blue pie there. Now, similar to what Alex said, right, we are looking more closely at that quote, and we are looking at where we can prioritize, right? Maybe we don't have to go out year 1 with every, cameras in, 50 locations. I'm making that number up for the sake of the example, but maybe there's a top 10 or a top 15 that are critically important for us that we want to make sure have that coverage right out of the gate. What I've noticed here is we've done some of that in the past. We've taken a system, we've bought it, we've invested, and we've prioritized and cut too much. And now we're having to come back and realize we don't have what we need. So I think there's some balance between getting all the bells and whistles and making sure that we have the right coverage from a security standpoint, the baseline.
Was there something that happened that precipitated us having to look at?
I definitely have gotten several requests from multiple departments.
Especially the rec center, we have had an issue with homeless people basically getting to the, around the rec center and everything else, sleeping there. We got a lot of kids there. So it's really, that's probably the number one issue.
This is a law enforcement, safety, security, law enforcement issue that I'm understanding?
Well,
It's a safety issue,
yeah, it's a safety issue for the city. What the slide about the write-up was kind of giving you some, so we're working closely with law enforcement, right? They come in and they ask us all the time, like, hey, do you have a camera X, Y, or Z here? Can you help us? Do you have anything you can facilitate getting some information? So we definitely work with them, but I'm not trying to propose that this is a law enforcement type system that we're looking to implement for the city. We're looking to get a camera system that provides the safety and security for us that will augment those folks.
I guess what I'm wondering is, was there a genesis of this triggered by the sheriff or somebody coming to us and saying, look, you guys, you have no monitoring here, we can't catch the bad guys? I mean, is that?
They're definitely pushing for, I mean, we didn't get Officer Stanton in here today, but he and his superiors are of significant, this is of significant interest to them. They definitely come to us regularly and look for this kind of information, and they described the importance of, having it so that it augments their coverage. But there's no one's come and said, hey, you've got to have this, but they certainly are waiting for the answer to whether or not this is going to get approved, because they're,
Because
looking to have this help augment.
Sorry.
And what does this cover? Basically our facilities?
It'll cover
All of the city facilities?
all of the city facilities, correct?
But my question was on the chart. The initial project implementation, illegal dumping from the Bayway, broken public amenities, the rec center we talked about. The existing solution is failing. Got to be honest, I didn't even know we had anything in place.
There's a couple,
And
but every time, if somebody wants something, we have to say no, because.
no, but help with beach enforcement. So it seems to be, when I read this, that we're looking to do this now around the city, not just at city facilities. So as I said earlier, and we're going to run out of time here again, but we need to have a comprehensive plan on what we're doing and where we're rolling it out, what problem we're trying to address, which I'm not getting from this. Just being honest here, right? What's the problem we're trying to fix? Cameras are the new rage, but do we have and I'm not saying we wait to have a safety issue before we actually go do something, but we need to have the right level to prevent that. I'm not aware we've got a theft problem. I haven't heard of any theft or physical altercations. So, I'm not trying to be ornery here, but it's a year 1. If it's a multi-year phase plan, we ought to look at this comprehensively, because in a year from now we'll be sitting here and having another discussion. Well, it's year 2. We already spent the money, so now we have to spend year 2 money, and then year 3 money. Well, wait a minute.
Yeah, let me just understand this. This would be approving the budget, but then when you went to purchase these, those would come back before the commission for approval at that time?
Yes.
So that's when we can have, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and we're talking some big dollars, so
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But I just want to make sure those things would come back, because anything that's over 25,000 is going to come back for approval, of which then we would understand that.
Out to multiple bids beyond the quote that we
Yeah,
have now,
right.
right? So that we get competitive quotes, all of that, yes.
And I don't want to minimize it, but it's sort of a placeholder. You've done some research. You've said, if you want me to achieve certain goals, this is what it's going to take. It's up to us to, question it, approve it or not.
That's right.
But there will be another sort of bite at the apple we will see more detail.
Yes, absolutely. All right, sake of time. We come back to the CIP, because I think we beat that one up pretty good. Are there other questions related to the CIP? Again, I tried to follow the same structure of replacement versus net new, so that you could see, not everything that you saw in that bucket of IT budget spend was all new. But the CIP does have, obviously, clearly some net new capability in there.
Are you going to next cover the reoccurring?
Sorry, yep. So,
Okay.
yeah, let's jump into the reoccurring. So,
Just one last point on the AV solution, is still, I know it's a work in progress, the television studio back there.
yeah.
Whether we need actually to maintain that, and if we don't move to another technology. I mean,
Oh, 100%.
running everything, because we talked about this a year ago, for Spectrum, I think we put 50 or 60K in the budget last year. And we're feeding through Spectrum. Do we really, as technologies change and, I don't know, Spectrum's subscriber base, do we need to maintain that? And at what cost?
Well, the feeding through Spectrum, I think is the cheapest part. The system, the cameras and all that, and the control systems over
And
there.
that equipment, which is pretty
That's
antiquated.
what you really need, because whether you cast through Facebook or YouTube or whatever, that's the easier part, is having this system that really captures everything and everything else and provides the capabilities. I remember Andrew being very frustrated about when we're trying to have hybrid meetings and everything else, and the feedback that you get when you're trying to have multiple things going at the same time. The new systems will be able to give you that. The old systems they struggle with that. So,
Well, keep in mind, right, that I'm not looking for another project, right? This one's going to be large, and it's going to be fairly complex to get that completely replaced. If I had to put the fires, right, the priority fires, that is one of them. That system has also had a number of things fail this year, and Ryan is a technical whiz, so he has gone out and Band-Aided things together a couple of times since I've been here in the 6-8 months, right? So that system is one pull away, and that one's very public facing, clearly. So that one is high priority for me. I'm hoping it's approved so we can get going with it. I know it's been a project on for a year or two now.
And do you have all that in the budget?
I've got to place
we
it
had
similar
50,000
to
last
Amherst.
year.
Okay,
We
there is
now have 100. We're
Okay.
racing to 100.
Right, we
I mean,
should-
some of the equipment in there is 20.
Yeah, I would love for you guys who hasn't been
20
in.
years
It's
old.
pretty interesting stuff.
Still have VCRs in there?
Yeah, pretty close. It's got those old CRT machine, the green screen.
Beta Vision.
Yeah, it's pretty
Take a walk
brutal.
back in history, go in that room.
Yeah.
Right, taking up a lot of time. Hardware, so the one thing that, specifically was called out was, some of these things that you're looking to replace, the end-of-life equipment, what is kind of that hardware life cycle? So I just wanted to make a clarity point here that all the hardware that we would be putting in, the firewalls and the switches with that replacement cost bucket on the prior graph there, 5 to 7 year life cycle, generally speaking. So the cost from now, once we make this first investment, to the next hardware replacement is 5 to 7 years. There is no additional cost inside of that 5-year term, except for the support and maintenance with going with the managed services provider to maintain, the equipment. There is no hardware reoccurring until we go with the 5 to 7 year replacement. And then what we would do in 5 to 7 years, instead of waiting for all of it to need another replacement and come ask for another 100K, is we would stage it, right? So we would build a hardware life cycle structure such that we would normalize the spend. So maybe year 5, we would start by replacing those in City Hall, and year 6, those in Public Works, and 7, and so on, so that you're not taking this big bite or this big chunk of spend at one time. That's a normal hardware life cycle maintenance process that's just not been maintained here.
And is that professional and contractual number going to stay the same over year to year?
I think it will. I think it can come down. It likely will come down from that 240. We're talking about, again, all the pieces of what that layers up to be I think over time it will come down. You know, we could potentially hire someone that has those skills, but I don't see that happening and foresee it in probably the next 3 to 4, maybe even longer. I think that's a reoccurring cost for the city on some level. Any questions on the hardware reoccurring expend? It's a 5 to 7 year at a minimum. We would normalize the schedule such that we don't pay all of that at the 5 to 7 year mark on the entire thing. We would stage it out.
Yeah, we're going to try to build a replacement program like we have for vehicles.
Yes.
That, you know, so that these hits don't happen, boom, and then 7 years later, boom again.
Yeah.
So we're going to amortize that.
Yeah. All right,
Thank you,
next time I'll get it out of the way for the next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And Michelle.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Michelle Gonzalez, Community Development Director. So this first slide is regarding the freebie services. I believe the last budget workshop, we had presented the 3 items that Commissioner Roan had wanted us to look into, which was funding level service options for a 15-minute level service, a 20-minute level service, and a freebie looper. And so we're seeking today to have direction which options we want to move forward for the fiscal year 24 budget. So staff, we met with the freebie managers to discuss the maintenance of the 2-level service standards. Freebie advised that they can maintain a 15-minute level service throughout all hours except Fridays and Saturdays is where they have their peak demand between 4 and 8 p.m. So they provided for the 15 minutes, it would add 3 additional vehicles during this peak, and it would cost an additional $38,000 a year. It's for a 20-minute would be 2 vehicles at $26,000.
The budget reflects the 15-minute service.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what
And
you have
then-
right now.
Michelle, can you talk for a moment on the industry standard because I think in a meeting some time ago you had mentioned, is it 20 minutes is considered premium service, or is it
15 minutes. 15 minutes or less is typically premium service.
15-minute wait time?
Yes. So like that's what our
For
PSDA.
public transportation.
Yeah.
Because this is not Uber. We're not trying to compete with Uber that tries to get you 5 to 7 minutes. So just, and it's important that the user recognizes that the service is free and is part of the public service system. So I think defining expectations is going to help us, you know, with that. So 15 minutes is really what we're aiming. We can aim at 15 or aim at 20, but I think less than that is just going to be the cost. It just escalates, and you're going to have so many dead periods where you have equipment that doesn't get used. Right. So they're trying to balance that.
And so then, if 15 is premium, I'm assuming then that's why Sunrunner, which has been sold as a premium
Yes.
service, chose 15 buses every 15
Yes.
minutes.
And for example, Sarasota County they did away with a lot of their low-performing transit routes and replaced it with an on-demand service similar to Freebie, and their wait times are 30 minutes because that's typically standard bus transit service is about 30-minute headways. So there's a range, there's different ways of delivering the service, but that's another area that provides similar service, and that's what their expectation is. But they're obviously larger service area coverage. 15 minutes seems pretty doable here in the city, but there's also the 20-minute option that can give a buffer.
So what level of performance are they signing up to deliver? So ideally, it'd be 100%, but nothing's ever 100%. So is that they'll get 80% of the rides within 15 minutes or 20, whichever one we pick, or would they commit to, what are they committing to?
So from the last presentation I did, we're almost about over 80% are within the 20-minute level of service, so they don't have an issue maintaining that. They're flexible to the demand that the City Commission and the directive that the City Commission chooses. These were, when they looked at both options, this is what they recommended, that they would need to adjust the service to account further for those wait times.
Right, and remember that this contract is not a performance-based contract. This contract is on an hourly-based rate. So they're not committing to a performance level, they're committing to a number of hours available. We can measure, what percentage of the rides are 15 plus or minus 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll be able to adjust the service as we need to. So once, I think an important thing here is the commission says, try to average 15, then we can really work with them on managing the service and give the commission updates saying, well, we're meeting the 15 or we're not meeting the 15, and if we're exceeding the 15, we can cut. If we're not meeting the 15, another vehicle can be added, during the year. But having that baseline, that is the targeted baseline, I think is very important for managing the proper service.
Yes, but it comes, the reason I ask the question is it comes to expectations.
Right.
If they commit to 15 minutes, but the ability, the achievement is at 50%, users aren't going to be happy. But if we go to 20%, if they're able to sign up to, I'll make it up, 90% achievement, then you have a better solution for 5 minutes, and you have a much higher satisfaction level than, do we set it at 20 minutes? That's where I'm trying to get, because I don't want to set up, 15 minutes shorter is always better. I want to make sure that they can perform and satisfy the users and not create what we're trying to make what we think will be a satisfier and turn it into a dissatisfier.
I think
Yeah.
what I've heard
If that was clear.
from Ms. Gonzalez is, based on the current situation, they're almost meeting the 20-minute, almost meeting it at 100%.
At 80%.
Or at 80%. If we add more vehicles under the 20-minute model, then presumably it would bump it up between 80 and 100%, and it would likely get us, close that delta to almost zero margin of, wait time. It would close the gap.
But I think it's always going to be moving, because what I would say is that the better we get and the more word that gets out is the more people are going to use it. So, I mean, I think we just have to decide this, and we'll see how it goes. But, that's what I said with this from the very beginning. I knew this was going to be successful. I knew our biggest problem was going to be probably too successful. And we're there, and now we're looking at adding, and it may just repeat itself again. I have no idea how many people are using it. I talked to quite a few people who use it. My guess is there's still a lot of users out there that aren't using it yet. And once you tell them, we tell them, everybody tells them how great it is, the word's going to get out and more people are going to be using it.
But we do far exceed the amount of people that used to use the bus.
Oh, absolutely.
You can find a lot of people that currently use this that never used the bus in their entire lives, right?
There's no doubt.
And
Dollar for dollar, we're getting a lot more value out of this thing.
And Freebee's working on their internal operations. They're updating their app right now. So they've unleashed a new driver version of the app, which was working at streamlining how they're picking up the requests and tying it to an algorithm based off people's locations. So we're going to see some more efficiencies through there, and they're piloting that now. And they just told me that the driver app interface, they've just launched it last week with their drivers, so they're testing it. And then they're going to be doing an update to their public facing app, where there's going to be more now, because of the service, provide people wait times exactly when they're going to be picked up, and have more real-time communication where they're out in the queue, stuff like that. So that's another rollout that they're the next 2 months working on, updating the app. So we'll have a better experience.
If they're at 80% on 20 minutes today, why do we have to pay another $26K?
To try to get to 100?
Well, but we'll never be at 100. I mean, there's no service.
Closer to, right. Because at 80% 20, we're getting complaints, right?
I think it'll help during peak hours.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the reasons we explored this, is because there was complaints about wait times during these peak hours. Despite their meeting the 80% at 20 minutes, there's still complaints. So that was one of the reasons for this. And that I wanted to explore that freebie looper, because if we decide to add that certainly would take some pressure off of the wait times on the regular vehicles.
So here we cut back the looper service option to just do a 90-day pilot during their busiest time, spring break.
Because if it doesn't work during 90 days, then it won't work. That's our logic.
It could be a pilot project that we conduct for next year.
So that's in the budget currently?
Yes, it is.
The 15-minute plus the freebie looper are
Yes.
both in? Okay.
And if we put those two in the budget, are we still less than where we were with PSTA?
That takes you to the next graph.
Yeah.
I didn't even read the chart.
Right.
So PSTA, our current proposed, what we're including in the budget is a $295,000 for fiscal year '24 service, but there's a caveat to that because they're currently discussing truncating the Central Avenue trolley in its entirety, but that decision won't be made by the board till the 27th. So we're still including the full 295 into the budget just to cover it based off their decision. If they do cut and terminate the service, we'll have another savings of $86,000 in fiscal year '24. We're putting in the agenda because we need to, for the next meeting, to have the PSTA agreement, because we have to have that signed in place before October 1st for the continuity of transit services. But there's language in there that if they do decide it, that we would get reimbursed anything that they might have overcharged. So that covers the board decision that we're gonna have to vote to amend that agreement and keep that 295 amount before their board meeting, because we won't have another commission meeting before October 1st.
And what we hear from staff is that they're recommending to cut that.
Yes.
And so, but it's not done until it's done. That's why we're going to keep both numbers. But the reality is the $86,000 doesn't exactly match what we add into freebie, but it's very close because we add in 55 and 37.
37.
So the dollars that are in the budget today and these additional charges are based on the current contract or what we think will happen?
On the current contract. So the moment they drop the 86, you can take $86,000 from the
You're
budget.
talking about freebie?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
Freebie.
On the freebie contract,
Yes.
because we're going to go through a renegotiation.
Yes, we have one more year freebie service, which we'll have to a contract extension done this month. And then we're going to start in October, we're going to have a workshop to discuss the RFP process, what we want to do, include in the scope, and to rebid the process. And that will be going from October to next fiscal year. And then hopefully by fiscal year '25, we'll have a new vendor or freebie. We don't know who we'll end up with.
Extension, when it comes in, will we see the new, will there be a new rate and will we be taking?
No, it's the same rate.
I think they're maintaining the rate for the,
Yes, it's the
through
same rate.
extension
It's
process.
just one more year.
31, 33, 31?
It's $30.60 an hour.
Yeah.
So
Which is really is a fairly good competitive rate right now.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
So we have one more year of that, and then we'll be putting out a bid and renegotiating a new contract with a vendor that we select.
I think the 15 minutes in the looper.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think we have to, as
Try that,
the
right?
manager said, well, and also set the right expectations.
Yep.
Like, someone's going to get on a looper and go, what do you mean I can't get off Gulf Boulevard?
So, and it's a lot of public education.
Yeah.
So we'll work on that.
Where is that looper intended to go?
The looper from 35th to 75th.
Okay,
The
basically.
main,
The main
yeah,
part
main
of
part of Gulf Boulevard, where people might use that as an alternate to get on and off and
Yeah.
if they have to wait. So then the freebies can go more into the neighborhoods and disperse around.
Okay,
Excellent.
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Sheila?
Okay, and I'm here to talk about the slide on the vehicle replacement plan.
Right.
So I worked closely with Public Works Department to come up with the vehicle replacement plan update for the fiscal year. As you can see, due to the current inflation levels and how the price of vehicles have gone up extremely high over the last few years, we've updated the vehicle replacement plan, so we have updated when we need our replacements made and the additional cost based on inflation. And then that, as you know, the vehicle replacement plan is a separate fund and the departments that have vehicles transfer money each year to fund what they anticipate to spend, let's say 5 years from now, because they're planning on replacing their vehicle in 5 years, or however that works out. So sometimes the replacement year shifts a little bit based on how much use the vehicle has. So the total increase across all the departments resulted in a 54% increase to the proposed budget that we talked about a few months ago.
Right, from the,
Is that just for this one fiscal year?
Yes, just this fiscal year.
Okay, I just want to clarify that. 'Cause
Yes.
typically that fund is over many years, so it's
Yeah.
Yeah,
a
but
big
it is
stagger.
fiscal year and every year henceforth.
Yeah.
Because the
Right.
prices of vehicles are just going through the
Yeah,
roof.
yeah. I just want to
Right.
make sure everybody knew that's a
Yes.
Yeah,
big
it's-
number, because
it's a
that's
re-
only
it's a-
1 year.
It's a recurring cost because it's amortized over the
Right.
life of the vehicles,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And again, this is the amount that we are transferring into that fund. I'm not saying we're spending all this in
Yeah.
1 year. This is to fund it. Because we're seeing like between 20 and 50% increase in the estimated replacement cost from our original estimates.
so is it time to look at a different model? And we talked briefly once before on a motor pool. I mean, and we're all friends here, so we'll just speak, I get feedback, hey, I drove by City Hall and there's all these white electric vehicles just sitting in the parking lot. Why aren't they being used? So, and we don't need to go, just as an example, is there a more efficient way that we can use the vehicles? The cost is the cost. We need to invest to run the city. Would a motor pool or some other way help us? Because, we all raised our eyebrows. I mean, when we were looking at this, it's all right, we're buying more cars, more trucks. And I'm just throwing it out there.
Yet the enforcement people have a pool, so not everybody has an individual car. And there are a couple of other vehicles that are available for people to use. For example, there's one that Rita keeps the keys, but anybody can go and ask for the keys of the vehicle, and anybody can use it. Where we have individual vehicles are mostly in the other operating departments, where every crew basically has their own vehicles. So because it's concurrent demand, they'll go out at the same time. They'll come back at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And the vehicles are available from 3 o'clock on and on Saturdays and Sundays, but we don't have staff Saturdays and Sundays to use those vehicles. So, so I think to the extent possible, we've been trying to pool vehicles more. For example, we added 3 more parking enforcement officers, and we didn't add any more vehicles. Just they're using them on the weekends because it just works better like that. There might be some other tiny little efficiencies, but I don't know that you'll see a lot by trying to pool, because to the extent that we can, we're trying to pool already. Okay.
So Sheila, what's the big increase from July? Because they drove to $1,000. Is it?
Oh, that's because I had not worked on it yet. I was still using previous year's amounts.
Oh.
Because we had our workshop and just had a lot.
That's always the danger in CIPs. I see that with a lot of cities all the time. When they're budgeting buildings, somebody rolls projects and they never understand the inflation. And there's been hyperinflation now in construction. So if you're not changing that number year after year, you get behind. And I mean,
Yeah, and I think
you didn't know a couple of years ago that vehicles were going to do what they did.
Yeah, I think this is the first time in years that there was such an intense look into escalation costs, replacement costs, all of that. So Sheila and the vehicle maintenance people did a lot of work together to get, the most current estimates. And they moved some vehicles around in terms of, this vehicle we can get another year of that. So they moved some vehicles, around us to see what the best they can do. But they are more expensive.
Yeah, because, it's a big number, and there's very few big number levers. We can focus on the $30 or the $150. Okay,
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Then the capital improvement program. So we've updated that, worked extensively with all the departments and all the projects, trying to get it up to date. So what we have now for fiscal year '24 is approximately $38.4 million allocated to the citywide capital projects. That includes all projects that we plan on working on for the upcoming fiscal year. But of this total, only $14.8 million is additional monies requested because we still have $23 million that's going to get reappropriated from previous years because of how the construction projects work and timing and everything related to that. And we still have $4.8 million in our ARPA fund, the American Rescue Plan Act. We received federal monies that will be spent for a project.
So the 14.8 represents the 30-some-odd projects that were in the packet?
Mhm.
So that assumes we do 100%?
Yes, it's assuming 100%, and, you know, like I said, usually it doesn't work out that way, but
Okay. And this is in the priority set by the finance?
yes.
In the priority order set by
Priority
them.
order by the
Priority
finance.
order set, right. Right, and that requires, just ballpark, that we dip into the reserves to the tune of about 500 and something. Hold on, let me give you the exact number. $578 coming out of fund balance to fund everything that you have over there in that list today and the current millage. So we'll talk about that millage and the balancing of the budget, you know, once we start the
6 o'clock.
the 6 o'clock budget hearing, but just gives you kind of a perspective as to kind of where you are right now.
So it's just a coincidence that 14.8 is the total for FY 2024? That's the total bottom line for FY 2024.
Right, that shows just new money allocated. Then I think it's on the, because it's allocated between all different funds. It's not just our capital improvement fund. There's
Right.
projects in the ARPA fund. There's projects in wastewater,
Yes,
stormwater.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this year we have an unusually large carryover because a lot of the big projects haven't gotten off the ground for in these design purposes. Gulf Winds, Boca Ciega, the next phase of underground in the pump station 1. So
Yeah.
some big projects
Yeah.
that are still just about to go to procurement, but they haven't been bid and awarded yet. So
I'm just looking at page 119. That's kind of coincidental that we're 14.8 of additional money.
And
It's
14.8.
14.8 just for this one fiscal year, but that's just a coincidence, I think.
No, that is the new money only, that you've already approved what's getting reappropriated.
Oh, okay, I see
You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
Then
it is
on-
the same,
No, no,
okay,
wait
it
a
is the same, yeah, okay.
Then I don't understand the chart. So are we saying, and I'm just going to pick up number 3, the
Seawall.
seawall rehabilitation. This says we're going to spend, it's ranked third, we're going to spend $1.625 million in fiscal year '24. You said that's only new money?
that is new money.
But what's
We
the
had in-
total
in
of the
23 In '23, you had $2.8 million more or less for seawall money that you allocated to Pasadena.
Okay.
If you remember when we did this seawall master plan, the total nut was about 10 million.
Yeah, I just picked the.
Right. So we just keep on putting more money every year to do
Yeah.
other areas.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Chart, we'll talk more.
I think that's the workshop material. We'll start in the village discussion and the budget at 6 o'clock unless you have any other questions regarding this additional. This was just all open items and supplemental items that you had not seen before that just wanted to cover that.
Then we meet on Saturday?
We'll start, first budget hearing is at 6 p.m. today, and then the second budget hearing is
a week.
Saturday, 23rd.
23rd, okay.
Yeah, a week from Saturday.
Right.
All right, do we have anything else? Meeting is adjourned.